Welcome back to day 2 of the GCVI Summit. I hope that all of you are well rested and rehydrated and are excited for the next couple of hours of programming. As George Kellerman of Woven Capital highlighted yesterday, we have a wonderful partnership with Up Labs, and it's my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome to the stage John Colt, who is the founder and CEO of Up Labs, and Caitlin Foley, president of Up Labs, along with Pasha Sally, and I'm sorry if I butchered your names, head of corporate development for Alaska Airlines. So thank you all for being here today. We appreciate your insights. Please.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for having us. I was told no one would be here Thursday morning, so it's nice to see you all. What we're going to talk about is a little controversial today, especially for the people in the room, but we'll try to be as delicate and as polished as we can, even though sometimes that's a little tough. But before we do that, we'll just start with a quick round of introductions. I'm the founder and CEO of Up Labs, and spent a lot of my life with my partner, Caitlin, business partner, that is. She's my work wife. I have a real wife too. And I spent a lot of time, we built out the incubation arm of the Boss Consulting Group. And why that's important is that we became the largest corporate incubator in the world. And so we had more data than anyone in the world on what worked and what didn't work when you're venturing with a large corporation. And even though we weren't able to talk about it and it was all classified and kind of CEO type initiatives, we did that, and we were able to spin a group out focused on that. So with that, I'd like to pass it over to my Caitlin.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin Foley. I'm the president of Up Labs, and I've been in this very niche space of working with corporations to launch new ventures for over a decade. First at BCG Digital Ventures, where I was part of the early team, developed the methodology there, and then most recently with Up Labs. And I've launched over 20 companies with corporations in areas like energy, transportation, and logistics. So I'll pass it to Pasha.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Pasha Saleh. I run corporate development for Alaska Airlines. I've got a background in commercial aviation, about 30 years as an airline pilot, management consultant in the aerospace field. I was in strategy at Boeing when there actually was a strategy. And at Alaska Airlines, I stood up the CVC, which we call Alaska Star Ventures. That takes its name from the original name for our airline. Alaska is actually one of the oldest airlines in the world, 94 years, I think, this year, but it started off as Alaska Star Airways. And so we named our newest legal entity after our original founding entity. And it was really, the idea was to get us on the path to net zero more quickly by identifying technologies that either don't yet exist in the world or are at the very nascent stages. And that was the thesis for our CVC that launched about 3 years ago.
Excellent. Thanks for being here with us, Pasha. Porsche was going to be here with us as well, but Stuttgart is a long flight. And so we have an exciting little video we're going to play at the end since they couldn't be here. And so I hope you'll stay for that. That'll be in 10, 15 minutes. Okay, so what we're talking about today is, I guess it's not there, that's okay. What we're talking about today is kind of new paradigms that we're seeing in corporate venturing and kind of new models, operating models, governance models, what we've seen work, what we've seen have not worked. And so I think it kind of starts with this high level point, which I think Mark Andreessen made a while back, which is more and more true now with the rise of artificial intelligence, is that software is eating the world. And you've got this incredible convergence of autonomous systems, electrification, connectivity, artificial intelligence in the physical world of large corporations that we all play in, advanced materials, sensors, battery technology, propulsion technologies. And there's a big political push for sustainability and renewable energy sources and massive computing power. And it's all converging into this kind of world where at a high level, software is eating the world. And what does that mean for large corporations? If software becomes the new gold, and that's where really the intelligence is, what does it mean for large corporations that are 100-year-old airlines that are the best at what they do? If you ask our partners at BCG that run the airline industry, they'll say Alaska is the best run airline industry in North America. There's probably some other airlines in here, so who knows if that's a controversial statement or not, but that's what I was told. And so we're very, very happy to have them here. And they're very, very good at operating planes. Porsche is very, very good at making cars. But what does that mean as everything starts going to software? What does that mean for you? And what we have found is it's not just about ingesting software. Porsche has a group called Cariad. It's a kind of a laughing stock of Europe. It's kind of like Boeing, like you just made the joke about Boeing. There's 2,000, I think, data scientists. And it's very hard with the structures in place for them to build things that are meaningful. So there's this funny conundrum. You need software, but you also need entrepreneurs. If you really want to solve the core problems that matter for a large corporation, 50 billion plus, 100-year-old company, the big companies that matter for the world, that are really, really good at what they do in the physical hard tech world, there's this funny conundrum out there. If you really think about it, there's no way to align the world's biggest and best corporations with the world's best entrepreneurs, which you need to do since software's eating the world. Because those entrepreneurs, you can't hire them. They've exited their companies, they've sold them to the likes of Google and Apple, and there's no money that Porsche can pay to hire them, or Alaska can pay to hire them, or that I can pay to hire them. And so what do? You can sit there and kind of reactively invest, which is what we're doing today. So I actually think it's a little bit hilarious if you think of the complex value chain that Porsche has, from supply chain, factories, downstream, and Alaska, the complexity of everything they're doing. If you look at how CVC is today, it's very, very reactive. It's kind of funny. It's basically, we're kind of just sitting there saying, God, I've got these complicated core problems, lots of problems. And problems are the asset for a startup, right? That's why startups exist, to solve problems. I've got all these complex problems. I'm just going to sit here, and I'm going to wait, and I'm going to hope that some smart person in the Silicon Valley or Berlin or whichever city invents something that's relevant to me. And if so, I'm going to reactively invest in it. And you're never really going to try to align. You're never going to really align them. They want your money. They want you as a customer. But it's never going to be the core strategy of what you're doing. And so, there's this thing, I think probably everybody knows this now, Clayton Christensen, he's a Harvard professor who wrote a book called The Innovator's Dilemma, which is if you're a big corporation and you innovate and you're good at what you do, like Alaska did. They started back in the day in Alaska schlepping little planes. Porsche, the Porsche family, they built a car. If you innovate and it's successful, you become really big. And the structures that allow you to be big and maintain being big are at odds with innovation. Managers at odds with entrepreneurs, continuous improvement is at odds with move fast and break things, profitability is at odds with growth. You've got to pay shareholders, you're big publicly traded companies. And so what we've seen is that all the corporate innovation that's happened in the last 10 years has been really, really good, and it's been a really, really good step in the right direction. But if you go, I remember Ben Minicucci, the CEO of Alaska, he came to me and he said, hey, John, he's like, I don't care that we're an LP in a fund that is investing in flying cars. He's like, I'm flying 50 million people on metal tubes every day, and my flight ops aren't connected to my ground ops, which aren't connected to my crew. I don't even know the most profitable route to fly. And you can't get that new innovative approach with startups and entrepreneurs to go break into that and figure that out in a large organization. And so you've got internally, corporations, the tools you have on the left, in the left bucket, you have innovation labs, R&D labs, and you've got kind of like internal accelerators, incubators. They're aligned with your strategic direction, it's great, but it's hard to attract the right talent. You can't give, at the end of the day, people, what do they want? What do the startup founders want that have exited and sold their companies? They don't want a big salary, they want startup equity. And if you're a big company like Alaska or Porsche, you can't really give that to them. So then, corporations have gotten smart and they go, okay, we suffer from innovator's dilemma. I think all corporations know that now. We're really good at being big. It's not that we're bad at innovation, we're really, really good at being big. So we're going to turn to the external world. What are my tools there? CVC, very good look around the corner, wonderful. But it's never gonna be like a strategic thing for a CEO in their core operations. These companies are making $1 billion every couple of days. If you invest in a startup and they financially return things, it's great, but it's a look around the corner at the end of the day. And then M&A is great, but it's very big. And so the question really is, how do you align the strategic direction? How do you get outside talent? How do you play in an ecosystem with a real VC fund and accelerated time to market? And then ultimately, you want to spin that company that we're going to create back into the large corporation so it can grow and become part of the future DNA of that corporation and really move the needle for them. This is a quick snippet by Porsche before their IPO that they put, and they charted us high strategic value on the top. You can tell we didn't make it because if we did, we'd have had UP Labs all on one line. And high strategic value on the top, but it's a very little money because you're building technology startups from scratch. So there's no big CapEx investment, but it's very, very strategic. And then ultimately it turns into an M&A path. And so what we did is we kind of created a first of its kind venture lab where we work with corporations to identify the most pressing challenges that they have, because those problems become the asset to a startup. And then inspired by these problems, we go attract and hire founders. We signed someone yesterday. He sold, the founder of ShopSkeep sold it to Lightspeed for $500 million. It turned into a $1.1 billion acquisition. There's no way our retail partner could ever hire this person. And I'm actually flying back on a private plane of one of our CEOs because there's no way Porsche could ever hire this person. That he sold his last company to Apple. And so how do you get that person focused on the core problems? And then after these companies once they've matured after a couple years, then we allow the corporation to kind of spin them back in and buy them, kind of like the Cisco spin-in in a way, a little bit element of that. And we believe this is the shortest road to a faster, safer, cleaner, more accessible future. So with that, I just want to kind of pass it over to Caitlin, and she's going to, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you developed. You were on the founding team of BCG Digital Ventures, and you really were the one that developed all the methodologies there. And just so you know, she was the youngest managing director in the history of BCG to ever grow through and become a managing director, because I was one of the managing directors pounding the table for her to get her up there. And so not the youngest female, but the youngest male or female in the firm. So yeah, maybe you can tell us a little about that.
Absolutely. I like to let John do all of my intros because he does such a great job with them. You can pass it to the next slide. Okay. So I think a couple of things. One is that strategic alignment is really important, and governance is absolutely key. And what we found is we designed an investment committee of senior leaders from the corporate partner, and they partner with our leadership team. So it's actually half-half. So this means the decisions we make are unanimous. We're not trying to overturn the corporate partner. And that's really for two reasons. One, it allows us to strategically align with the needs of the corporate partner and deploy capital accordingly. The second reason is around speed. So I'm a big believer, if you take a fledgling venture and you stuff it through a corporate approvals process, it is going to die pretty much immediately. We all know that. And so you have to shortcut and accelerate that process where you can, knowing that you have legal and procurement and other things in place that you can't change. So that's the reality. So our team, our core team, is a group of builders. We build software and software hardware hybrid companies, and we're all product managers, designers, developers that go in and work with this investment committee, and we pitch them problems first. We're problem hunters. And then ultimately we pitch them solutions. And so they vote and they fail a lot of our stuff very fast. We do that together. We also have access to tons of subject matter experts. So we're working in this very niche field of airline scheduling, and Pasha is going to talk about that in a second. We have PhDs and academics that have spent their entire careers in this space. And I think, and you can go to the next slide, JK. So the next slide is really about our process, and we have a 4-year cycle. So at the beginning, this first year of innovation and incubation, this is where UpLabs is working with the corporate partner. But what's interesting about our model is two things. One, when we launch a company, the corporate partner becomes the first customer of that company. And that's really important because it gets us to revenue very fast, and we share a lot of data with the corporate partner. The second thing that's interesting is we have a call option 3 years after the launch. And this allows the corporate partner to share a lot of proprietary insights with us that they wouldn't share with any startup just coming off the street. So two really important things. But now back to this innovation process. This is where we fail a lot of things very, very fast. So we'll often come up with 150 problems across Alaska or Porsche. And that can lead to 30 different new ventures that we pitch to that investment committee. And so we fail all but 2 of those per year completely. They're gone. And so that allows us to build things that are aligned with desirability. Is there a customer in a market? Viability, is this the best business case that we can go for? And feasibility, is it technically and operationally feasible? And can we launch it in less than 12 months? And that's the speed that we work at. So we launch minimum viable products in less than 12 months, and they generate value for our corporate partner immediately. And that's the point at which we hire the CEO. So like John mentioned, we just hired someone who sold a unicorn 1.5 years ago. And then we also fund this. So our fund leads a $5 million seed round. So this means we actually put more capital into these ventures than our corporate partner does. And so I'd like to dive into Alaska and Porsche. And first, I wanted to ask Pasha, what attracted you to this model? What resonated with you?
Yeah, so many things. Your experience with Porsche was very, very relatable to us. You know, both operate in complex, highly regulated, safety-critical businesses that, frankly, don't lend themselves to innovation. You know, the Up Labs team put together a great report called the Moving World Report that I encourage you all to look at. And there's a very powerful graphic in there that shows that the time between the Wright brothers' first flight in 1903 at Kitty Hawk and the emergence of the Boeing 737, which is still the most popular airliner in the world today, is now equidistant from the first 737 to the latest one today, which means that nothing has really changed in the last 60 years. We got new engines, new avionics, but for all practical purposes, we're flying at the same speeds, the same altitudes since the first commercial jet airplanes were invented. And there's a reason for that. We figured out how to do something highly improbable. I always tell people sealing someone up in an aluminum tube 7 miles up going 600 miles an hour is an unnatural act, but we pull it off day after day in a way that's safer than walking. And so once we figured that out, we don't really want to change too much. And yet we know we have these core problems. There are better ways to do things. And so when we met the Up Labs team, they helped us really think about, well, let's very systematically catalog all the things that you could be doing better. And very quickly, they fell into two buckets, the operational side and then the commercial side. Operational being, how do we move the airplanes? How do we fuel them? Will hydrogen be a fuel source? And those are all very long lead time items that don't necessarily lend themselves to startup solutions overnight. But we're sort of plagued by that thinking that we can't change anything, which is not at all true. So you guys helped us see that on the commercial side of the house, there's better ways to think about how we schedule, how we do our revenue management. But because of this legacy thinking, it's just, well, this is how it has to be. Now, airlines are really, really good at optimizing. We optimize the heck out of everything. We've found a way to trim the turnaround time of a plane so that you're getting off and the cleaners are coming on this way and there isn't a spare second. But what we're doing really is optimizing something that was sub-optimized to begin with. We know that, we just have felt sort of powerless to do anything about it. And what I mean by sub-optimize is, you know, the big philosophical questions. Why do we fly to the places we do? Why do we fly when we do? Nobody really can answer that. It's just that's the way it's been, so we'll just do it better and better and faster and safer. And there's just a lot more value to be unlocked if you have partners that can help you find the best entrepreneurs with the most powerful software to focus on. That's never going to be something that we'll bring to the table. And so some of the things that we've done together are focused on schedule optimization. Our former CEO once said to me, have you ever wondered why most of our flights depart on the hour or 5 minutes past? And I said, yeah. He said, well, it's because someone once told me you remember your flight time better if it's at 9 or 10:05. But maybe if you left at 10:17, you would avoid an enormous queue to the runway that you know scientifically can show when it's going to build up and reduce. And from my time flying airplanes, I can tell you that if you push back sometimes 30 seconds earlier, you could avoid 30 minutes of sitting there with the engines running, creating CO2 unnecessarily, because you know everybody else behind you in the alleyway is going to do the same thing. So the work that we're doing together is leveraging software to get these insights and actually change the way we run our business.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks. It's cool to see because now you've got the core headaches. I remember the first time we met with Ben Minicucci, the CEO. He grew up in the airline in the maintenance side, and so he knows it very, very well. He knows the problems. And usually we don't see that. So usually the C-level is pretty disconnected from the actual problems in the bowels of the company. And one of, you know, of the 100 problems we went through together, one of his made it through. And it's one of the ones that we're currently building, and hopefully we'll be able to announce it, you know, in the next 6 months or so. And but it's now we're going to have these world-class entrepreneurs focused on the core headache that's going to move the needle for the CEO of that airline. Not some flying car that's going to change the world in 10 years. What are his problems today? How do you bring in that outside talent, outside capital from our fund, and ingest it into the heart of the organization that's going to move the needle, you know, for these very, very large companies? You know, all these innovation things are kind of distractions. You know, that's why actually Porsche viewed us as more strategic than their internal lab, because their internal lab would focus on kind of like adjacencies, and none of that's going to move the needle for a company that's making $1 billion every couple days. You need to focus on the core, and so this is really an interesting way to do that.
And I think that's one of the great things about Porsche. So they IPO'd a year and a half ago as a luxury company. So Porsche and Tesla are really the only two automotive companies to be something different than automotive. Tesla's a software company. And so we really dug into their core business, into the nitty-gritty, came up with around 100 different challenges, many of which the executive team wasn't aware of, which was quite interesting. And so now we're going to play a video that will tell you a little bit about our Porsche colleagues' thoughts on this partnership. So you can cue the video. UpLabs is a venture lab. We work with leading corporations who have a vested interest in the moving world. We go very quickly into prototyping and mocking these concepts up, taking them through a very rigorous process, and ultimately greenlight 2 concepts per year per corporate partner. Porsche is our first partner.
Their factories are the best in the world. Their processes are the best in the world. They also are known to play with the outside ecosystem a little bit. They don't think they know everything, which is fantastic.
The world is changing faster. There is a mismatch between what you need to do to be innovative, to actually adapt to the market around you and the processes you have established. We need execution attitude. And this is something that UpLabs brings to the table.
UpLabs is allowing us to do things we can't really do with existing startups, but also things we can't do with our existing teams internally. Our teams internal are generally focused very much on specific problems that we have. Venture capital is a super tool, but very much focused on startups, identifying startups that have already a product, and their goals might not be aligned with our strategic goals.
So here comes UpLabs with, from my point of view, a very unique approach.
It's different than venture capital. It's different than pure play M&A. It's different than an R&D lab.
We've been able to sort of crack this shared equity and incentive model in a way that no other entity has done before. This is a considerably different talent group than what you'll find inside of a corporate.
Sort of taking the best of both worlds, and that's why I'm really excited about what we can do here.
I could not be more excited to be launching this platform with my dear friends Ben and Cyrus. They're so inspirational, and they've really cultivated a community that's more powerful than any community I've seen.
Cyrus and I co-created something called the Up Summit.
We had this idea that, hey, the moving world's changing. Why don't we get together the top minds? There was an excitement and energy that came out of it.
That inspired us to take it a step further. Up Ventures One is a $230 million venture fund, and we're partnering with enterprising entrepreneurs at the earliest stages, helping them build enabling technologies for the future of transportation. The next step is UpLabs, to bring together these large corporations with entrepreneurs and our venture fund, which will be investing capital into these startups.
Legacy companies know that they need to change. They know that they're not able to solve all of the challenges that their customers and stakeholders have today.
We're tackling a big problem that really has an opportunity to impact humanity in a really positive way.
We can bring in the best entrepreneurs in the world with the best assets of the world from the best corporations. And with our model, we can actually accelerate, get to market quicker than even a normal startup would, if we really want to hit our mission of transforming the moving world. That was us really driving, by the way. Yeah, so with that, that was it. That's all we wanted to leave you with. So if you have any questions, there's, like Pasha said, there's a moving world report that's kind of some good insights into all modalities of mobility and how technology is impacting the world. There's a little table in the back. You can grab it there. And yeah, if you guys have any questions down the road, just come and grab us, look us up. We'd love to chat with you. Thank you. That's right. I know. I know.